All right. Another day. Another day in this thing. Any blessings? All right. So, this morning, did a quick read of my daily laws. And let me see. What was it? What was the title? Let's get it out. Why not? Let's see. So the title of the day. Today's Valentine's Day, by the way. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. Move towards resistance. Move towards whatever you are resisting, because what you resist will persist. What you're avoiding is only going to ensure that it remains. Whether it's that uncomfortable conversation with anyone. It could be a personal relationship, it could be a business relationship, it could be a family member, it could be just a friend. If there's something, a topic that you're avoiding, that only ensures that that topic will remain an open book that is unfinished. So what you got to do is look that issue square in the face and move towards it. Now this could apply also to, let's say you have a job with several different tasks, and some of them you're better than others. We tend to move in the path of least resistance. Like, all right, I'm good at this. Let's go in that direction. That will only ensure that your weaknesses will remain. And especially if this comes in the context of your employment, and if you're the employee, your supervisors, those above you, who observe you and look at where your proficiencies lie or where your deficiencies lie, they notice it, they see it, they'll see it, and this will be apparent when it comes to your reviews and how quickly you move up in wherever you are, right? Or how quickly you excel against the competition in whatever field you're in. So resistance is a big one when it comes to humans. You don't want to... I know, you want the easy path. Everybody wants the easy path. It's comfortable, right? You know your strengths. You want to lean into those and make them stronger. And that's a good thing. Make your strengths as strong as you can. But to avoid your weaknesses, you're punching holes in your bucket of water. And little by little, you're leaking out. And you will never become full, because there are vulnerabilities which are working against you, right? Take that image of a pail of water, and what you want to do is fill that bucket up from empty to full. But if I get a pin, punch a hole, tiny little hole into that bucket, it'll never be full, because there's always something, even if it's just a drop, there's always something leaking out. Think of those little drops of water leaking out as the weaknesses that you're avoiding. You're resisting to address them. What you resist shall persist. Yep, that was my daily page. That's what I got out of it. I kind of learned that on my own. Especially working with the dogs. You know, it's always easier, especially the rescue I work at. The rescue. It's not a rescue. It's a board and care. I used to work in rescue. That's why I tend to use that word. There's two sides. There's the small dog side and there's the big dog side. Everybody wants to work with the small dogs because it's low impact for the most part. You know, the tiny little guys, and they're cute and they're fun, and you know, when they play and run around, it's not as exuberant, it's not as high energy. And if they happen to get an attitude and want to bite, it's a little dog bite. It's not, it's going to hurt, but it's not like a big dog. Well, for whatever reason, I when I was there, I wanted to just, because it's my 1 day a week job. I don't work there full time. And I notice, most of the people, they want to be in the small yard. And I was kind of that way too, only because, I'm here 1 day a week, man. I kind of just want to relax and take it easy. A lot of the times for a while I was working 7 days a week. So that's day number 7 of my full week of work. But it kind of hit me like, these guys aren't even really equipped to be in the big dog yard. I have the skills to handle that environment. I can redirect their energy when it's needed. If I see them getting too high energy, and sometimes high energy play can turn into a fight, I see that coming. I have the background for this, but these guys really don't. They don't have a background in working with dogs. They're just working at a daycare. And dogs is my thing. Even though that's my 1 day a week job, that's really my thing when it comes to what I would like to do. But yeah, even then I was kind of like, I'd rather be with the small dogs. And I was like, you know what? No, because heaven forbid I insist that I want to be with the small dogs, and they put one of those other employees in there with a little less experience than me, and then something happens, either a dog's going to get hurt or they're going to get hurt. And I would rather not have either of those options come to fruition. So I was like, no, I'm going to be with the big dogs. If they decide to throw me in there with the small dog, that's fine. But I'm not going to ever request that. I'm going to be with the big dogs because I'm the big dog. And I must be with my kind. So that's a good example in my life. I'm sure everybody has those in theirs, whoever's listening to this. You got something in there that you're resisting. You want to take the path of least resistance. But this goes in hand in hand with another page I read the other day. This has something to do with accelerated returns. When it comes to something that's hard, if you choose to tackle a hard task or a hard skill, and you just make up your mind, you make a firm decision that I'm not going to quit doing this. I'm going to keep doing it until the hard part becomes more comfortable. Like I said in another video, it's not going to be less hard. You're just going to become accustomed to the hardness of it. And that's just going to become the new norm. And if you make doing hard things your new norm, then they're not as hard mentally anymore. Remember, the task is the same. It's just your perception of it has changed. So once you reach that point, now your mind's not focused on resisting because it's hard. Now that frees up energy in your mind to start actually focusing on the task itself. Because you're used to the hardness of it, now the task just becomes the task. And now that, once you reach that point, now the task actually starts to become a little easier. And you get to start to perfect the task. Because up to the point where the hard part becomes the new norm, you're in the learning mode of the task still. Once the hard part becomes the new norm, you're past the learning, and now you're into the field of mental creativity. Now you can start playing with whatever the task is. You can start maybe even discovering new ways to execute the task. And this is the part that becomes fun. Right? So the only the phrase that just came to mind is the only way out is through. Once you're in it, you can't back out. You must push through. And once you do push through and you break through that barrier, what's on the other side is freedom. Mental freedom, energetic freedom, emotional freedom. This is what we're looking for in life. You're not looking for an easy life. You're looking for the strength to not only endure, but to accelerate and to achieve more in a hard life. Don't pray for an easy life. Nothing good comes easy, right? Think of all the greats that you can, all the great achievers in life. They didn't have it easy. Read their books, read their biographies. Some of these people came from the worst positions in life ever. Grew up in times where it was hard times. We didn't have the conveniences of all the technology and information that we have at hand today. You had to be at the right place at the right time. You had to be around the right people. They had to see the right thing in you, and if they didn't, maybe they didn't want to take you under their wing and become your mentor. It's the way it was, right? Everything around you, the cars we drive, Henry Ford, it wasn't easy for him to do this. Everything, the roads we drive on, you think it was easy to pave all these roads and do all these things? It took a lot of hard work, but because of the hard work that other people put in, now we get to benefit. I said this before too. We get to walk on the well-worn path of success and achievement because others have paved the way. And I think that's something that we don't appreciate often enough. Somebody else did it first, and because they did, now you know what to do. They had to make the mistakes first, right? They had to navigate in the blind. And because they did, they figured out which way to go. And they figured out not only what to do, but what not to do. That's the most important part. When people give advice, they always want to tell you what to do. That's good, right? The helpful tips of what to do. But what they tend to leave out are the mistakes they made. Right? Don't do this. This is what I did. This was a mistake. Don't do that. It's very rare that people give advice in that form. And I think that's the most important advice to give first, if I'm being honest. Right? Like, what advice could I give for my personal life? Don't marry young. Don't marry young. Don't have kids young. Don't be in a rush to have a family. I know for whatever reason, sometimes people want to be in a rush to get married and have kids, and you're not even really established yet. You have no idea how hard that might be in the future, or what might come with the partner that you picked. So don't be in a rush. Life it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So you got to pace yourself. If you set small incremental goals, very small incremental goals, if you know you're proficient at achieving it, maybe then you could sprint towards that next goal, as long as it's small and not too far out in the distance. But something as big as getting married and having kids, that's a huge life decision. That's a marathon decision. Take your time with that one. Pace yourself. Make sure you're getting it right. When it comes to switching jobs maybe, or careers, that's a huge decision. Take your time. Get it right. Make sure it's going to fit the skills and the qualities that you have within you, and that the business that you're choosing to go into, or maybe the specific company that you're even looking to go into, is the right fit for you. Maybe their culture, whatever it is, that maybe it's not a right fit. Take your time, right? Man, some of these guys are driving nuts on the freeway. Well, I guess it's Saturday, they're having fun, whatever, going out for their morning ride. But yeah, that was my daily page for the day. Move in the direction of your resistance. And I guess since it's something you are resisting, do it slowly, because chances are it's something you put off for a while, right? Like, just say physical exercise. Say there's an exercise you don't really enjoy doing, but you've decided to start doing it. Don't go at it full force, because those muscles, you haven't activated them properly, and you could hurt yourself. You could pull a muscle doing an exercise with too much vigor. Right? Say it's a task at work, right? Especially if you like, okay, let's take my job for example. I make, what is it, class? I think it's described as a class 3 implantable medical device. I think it's a class 3. I hope I got that right. But this is going inside someone's body. So if I'm learning a new task on the manufacturing line, I am not going to rush to learn that well. I'm going to go very slow, and I'm going to do it right. I notice when it comes to at least the jobs I do, there's a whole lot of thinking that goes involved with the movements of the hand, because I work under microscopes with hand tools, and there's a lot of very intricate work that needs to be done. So I've done all that kind of stuff before, and at first, there's a lot of, you have to be so fully dialed in mentally at what you're doing, especially at some levels. Say you make a small mistake, all the steps before you, if you screw up, all that work and manpower that went into making it to make it to your specific task, that could all be for nothing. Imagine from the company's view, all that time and money wasted because you were in a rush and you screwed up. Companies don't want that, and it'll be glaringly obvious when you work in a field like mine, because they keep track of what's happening at what step and what operator was completing what task and at what time. So if it becomes apparent that you keep being the one that's screwing up, you can't avoid it. So it's always good to take your time at something new. Once the new and the hard now becomes the old and the easy, then you can start to maybe accelerate the pace or experiment. In my field, there's not a lot of room for experimentation. There are very rigid guidelines for the processes that we have, and you cannot experiment. If you have a good idea, you can bring it up to an engineer. They can do the experimentation, but on the operator level, guidelines must be followed. Man, something bad happened up there. That's crazy. Hope everybody's all right. So yeah, resistance, showing up weaknesses and deficiencies. Look for them in your personality. Look for them in your physicality. Look for them in your spirituality. Those are the 3 main areas that humans must be constantly looking at. Constantly audit yourself and be brutally honest. Now's not the time for ego. When it comes to looking for weaknesses, you check your ego at the door and be honest with yourself. But you are not fooling yourself. You won't fool yourself. So that's another thing. It could be anything. Anything can be improved, and improvement must be done slowly. I think lasting change, permanent change doesn't come quick. I mean, it can, obviously, say you're in a car accident and you lose your arm. Obviously, that's permanent, and it happened quick. But I mean, when it comes to changing character traits, or changing even physical traits, like losing weight. You can't lose weight quick. There's no shortcuts. I know they want to throw pills out there that help you lose weight quick. There are side effects to those, and you didn't diminish the habits that caused you to gain all that weight to begin with. You can't just take a pill and make your habit of poor eating and no exercise go away. You have to cultivate the mental habit of eating better and daily exercise. And because of those being cultivated, the weight will go away and it'll never return. And that takes time. say, when it comes to learning a new technical task. So you can't be like Neo in the Matrix and just jack into the system and now you know Kung Fu. Doesn't work that way. You must learn the techniques over time. And not only that, you must learn the techniques if you really want to, like say, martial arts, perfect example. If you really want to learn those techniques, you can't do it alone. Because it takes an opponent for you to sharpen those skills. You can go through the physical motions all day long, but it's by yourself. But it's a different world when you have an opponent coming at you now. You see, how can we attack the spiritual nature of this? Let's say someone who's never believed in God has some sort of experience that completely opens their minds to the idea. Not even religion, let's just say God. Their eyes have been opened to the idea of, man, there is a creator of some sort. You can't shortcut that. It took that person's whole life of unbelief to come to this one moment, this one glaring moment where that idea slapped them right in the face, like, hello, there just might be a creator. You can't just throw a Bible in their hand or a Quran or whatever religious text and say, here, just read this. They already still have their walls of unbelief or disbelief. That's the proper word. They already have those walls up. It doesn't matter how many books you throw at them. It's not going to do anything. You can't shortcut them to belief with a book. There has to be something else that comes into play that cracks that door slowly open. What religious people tend to do is they try to kick down the door of disbelievers by thrusting their theology into people's faces. That's not how it works. You can't kick down that door. You must knock first. It's a gentle knock, not with a fist. You can't pound on their door. And there must be a request for entry. You can't demand. It's not the way it works. You are going to get all the resistance in the world. And matter of fact, you might even create the resistance that you're looking to diminish because of how you approach people. That's what I've told people when it comes to how they preach certain theological doctrine. It might not be what you're saying. It just might be how you're saying it. All these fire and brimstone preachers, you are sinners and you must repent. For some people that may be necessary to hear, just like that, just the way you said it. For other people, there might be a nuanced way to do this that's way more effective. And all the you are a sinner and you might repent talk, that might just be pushing them further away, because they might be looking at you like, I don't want to be like that. That's a very ugly way to be as a person. Always telling people they're the worst in the world. How about telling people, instead of you're a sinner and you can repent and you must repent, or you're going to hell. You could just approach it by, there you have room for improvement. You can say something like that. You could be so much more. And maybe if you just explore these ideas in terms of theology and God, maybe this could help. It's just a suggestion. It's not a demand. A lot of truck traffic on a Saturday. But yeah, that's what I think. And I think even those fire and brimstone preachers, they're resisting the nuanced way. There it is. They're resisting a better way to preach the word. There's always resistance in some area, by some person. And if you look hard enough, you can find it. You can see it. It gets cold once you get over the hill going out into Santa Clarita. There's a very distinct difference in temperature all of a sudden. So I guess as you move out this way, see, I'm in California, as you move out this way going a little bit further north from the San Fernando Valley, I think they call it the high desert. You're moving closer to the, I think elevation is a little higher, I believe. And when you get out into like the desert area, temperature differences at night is strikingly extreme sometimes. So yeah, let me see with me. How can I resistance personally with me? All right, just driving in general. I'm a madman when it comes to driving. I used to drive a truck, like these big trucks I'm passing up right now. So after driving one of those, stepping into a car, these things feel like little go-karts to me. And I can whip in and out of traffic like a race car driver. I'm really good at it, but it can be dangerous. I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what these other people are doing, and that's where it can be dangerous. Because if I'm not careful, and if I'm not reading them properly, you know, they can make a lane change or a decision that I wasn't foreseeing. But up until now, I've been very good at it. When you drive professionally, you learn to read traffic very well. You can see things. You learn to see further ahead rather than just the car in front of you. I'm looking like way ahead to see what's going on. So I kind of have an eye for this in a way that maybe the average driver doesn't. Because I used to be out on the road professionally. But I have to resist that little race car driver mentality. Especially in a car like this. This car is very sporty. You can feel it. So I have to put that little demon in check, that little speed demon in check. So that's something I have to resist. That's not a resistance I want to move towards getting past, because this one's keeping me safe. See, there's always an exception to the rule, right? Sometimes you want to move towards your resistance and get past it. Sometimes what you're resisting may just be for your own benefit. So especially if it's keeping you safe. So just, I guess, be careful. Be careful what you choose to push through, and what resistance that you're actually going to adhere to. You know, sometimes that little voice is telling me, slow down, it's not safe. Okay, yeah, you're right. Let's do that. So, there's that. What else? I have a big mouth. And a quick tongue. So I have to resist doing that. That's healthy. You know, there's times actually where it's really come into my benefit, but for the most part, being a smart ass with a quick tongue isn't a good thing. Sorry, I mean to cuss. Let's see where else. Resistance. I don't know. There's a whole field of physical training called resistance training. Not too sure what that even entails. I would imagine it'd be like, maybe, what would resistance training be? I have to look that up. I honestly don't know, but I know there's a field of physical exercise called resistance training. It's different than like heavy weight training. I think it's probably just lower weight, maybe more reps, or like holding static positions for longer. Maybe it has something to do with that. Like if you do rubber band training, you know, you're kind of like resisting the pull of those big rubber bands. Or maybe it's like holding a dumbbell out. instead of like doing like curls, or maybe like you're slowly curling, you know, do less of the actual reps, but more of the you lengthen out the time of the rep, you know, instead of these quick reps, you lengthen that out. You know, maybe it takes 60 seconds to do a rep, and you're slowly moving that curl from straight to curl. Maybe that's what resistance training is. I don't know, to be honest, but I know there's something called resistance training. All right, almost to my exit, about to get past the truck scales. Another successfully safe trip to work so far, knock on wood. So yeah, when it comes to skills, let's just leave it at that. Skills and tasks that are hard. Resist avoiding it. Resist avoiding the hard part of a skill or a task. And push through. Focus on those the most. You already got the easy part down. Alright, you got that. Put that to the side for a bit. Let that hang out. Let's hang on with the hard part for a bit. That's what I would say. That's my message for the day when it comes to resistance. What you resist will persist. That's a law of attraction axiom, by the way. I know people think law of attraction is like woo-woo kind of. Well, that stuff doesn't work. It 100% actually works. Right? Whatever you focus on the most in terms of your thinking. See, it's two-part. Here's where people screw up with the law of attraction when they talk about it. It's not just the thinking that brings it into your world. You have to marry that thinking to a doing. That's the part they leave out, which makes it sound like woo-woo stupidness. Perfect example. Here's a perfect example. Somebody who's overweight wants to lose weight. You can't just sit there thinking all day about being skinny. Right? You can't. You can't just think about all the ways that all the activities that it takes to being skinny. You have to put those thoughts into motion. Right? All right, you thought about it. Now what can you do to marry that thought to an action which will equate the attraction of the goal? Right? It takes reps, mental reps. And you can't just do it once. You gotta do it over and over and over and over again. And it's one step at a time. And if you take one step at a time, you can go miles by just focusing on one step at a time. That's law of attraction. That's the real law of attraction. It's not just this stupid, mystical way of thinking. There's a formula that you can actually attain anything you want, but you have to really want it, right? I want to be a millionaire. Okay, well, you just can't think about it. You have to think about what you can do to bring that into your world. And people pervert good ideas and they turn them into things that they're not, like God. Religion has ruined the idea of a creator. And the same goes for law of attraction. People have ruined what is a very helpful way of thinking, doing, and being. Right? What's another axiom for law of attraction? Let's see, there's what you resist shall persist, like attracts like, right? That's like attracts like is like saying birds of a feather flock together, and this tends to be the case, even in like friendships. You tend to hang around with people that are like you. Like attracts like. So now you have to start thinking about, all right, what am I like? And what kind of like am I attracting? These are the kind of things you have to kind of start to think. And if maybe you don't like what you're attracting, then maybe you got to change something. Maybe there's an adjustment that has to be made. Maybe that adjustment starts with moving towards what you're resisting. Because you're not a full person. If you're resisting the things that you're not good at, or if you're resisting things you don't prefer, then you're missing out on growth. And you're willingly choosing to be less. And I don't like that. Personally, for me. And if I can inspire people to be more, I'm going to try. Nothing wrong with seeing more in other people and wanting them to see more in themselves. And if I can crack that door open, right? I'm not going to kick it down. I'm not going to pound with my fist. But if I can knock a little bit, just enough for them to crack the door open and see who's there, I like trying to be that knock. All right. Well, I'm at work. Just parked. And I'm going to go build some magnets. All right. Everybody have a great day. And move towards your resistance slowly. Baby steps. Slow and steady wins the race. And that's it. Let's go to work.